Thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. When you live, breathe, and sleep and dream about rotaries, you have one little nightmare. How do you cool some engine that produces this much heat? Particularly one that is capable of making 1,000 horsepower over and over again. These things generate more heat than the equivalent piston engine. Let me show you what we were using for the last couple of years to cool it. This Bell Intercooler's radiator, and it did a damn good job. Anything short of a full-blown hot track day, this thing kicked some serious ass. But the problem was, the engine could produce way more heat. No matter how we ducted this, that wasn't enough. What did we do to solve that? We cut the whole front of a car off. There was metal all in here, and that radiator was big enough to fit within the 28-inch width of the frame rails. Well, we no longer have that requirement, so we can go with a much wider core. So this comes from a little company called PWR, and who are they? Well, you've probably seen them in some other people's videos and whatnot, but they're actually my saviors for the IndyCar project. That said, I reached out to them and said, hey, what about cooling the 3-rotor? This is an absolutely insane radiator. This is not only a much larger core. This side is only 1 inch thick. The fittings are on this side. So some of you more keen observers will know this is called a dual pass radiator. So it goes through this section. There's no crossover here, even though all the fins look like they do. It goes all the way to the end and then makes a second pass back out. So with it being hot on the top, cold on the bottom, it's better to pull from the bottom because that's easier pressure differential and so on. So this will most likely be the cold side of the radiator. Even on PWR's own website, they have $600 radiators, and they're the same size as this. So I asked them, why is this worth $1,000? They've found a procedure, and I'm sure it's patented, to making the heat transfer 30% more efficient for the same core. So let's take a look at that compared to a really good alternative solution. This is a $300 radiator from Summit. It is the same surface area. It's a single pass. It's got one inlet on one side, outlet on the other side, and it'll do a damn good job. Don't act like it won't. But it doesn't take much effort to notice the density of the cores. $300 versus $1,000. Is an NA LS going to see the difference on these two cores? Absolutely not. But when it comes to making 1,000 horsepower and sustaining that, this is going to kick the shit out of that one. We are finally tackling the front. This is about 2 months behind. We'll go ahead and try the mounts. And they don't fit. Nice. So I will hold it here and you can see how massive this thing is. And one of our original goals was to have a tube come around it to the front and hold the front splitter and all that sort of stuff from up here. The issue is this guy. Doesn't look that bad there, but that's at the lowest that tire will actually sit. Less and less space for intercooler piping, which alone, intercooler piping wouldn't be a problem, but we have all of the air coming from these side coolers needing to get out here too. I might change the front tubing so that way we have more space on each side. That frees up 1 inch on each side of the radiator and kind of holds it in place. As we all have been getting absolutely deep into this car, it's been pure chaos. While I'm focused on taking care of the employees, taking care of the shop, I have been letting more recurring expenses accidentally recur. Good old Rocket Money has just been incredible for showing me, hey, look, here's my recent transactions. Who spends $250 at Harbor Freight and McFadden and more brakes and sanding? My expenses are out of control, but thanks to Rocket Money, I can see the ones that are accidentally ongoing. It's like Joel is for me for getting videos edited. is rocket money for me for my money, because it's like, hey, we think that we have 85% success rate at lowering your bills. Just having this thing say maybe there's better options reminds me, oh my God, all these cars behind me were all on insurance. This reminded me, you know, not even to cancel it through here, but to turn off a car I don't use. Rocket Money is incredible for canceling unwanted subscriptions, 85% success rate on negotiating lower rates on other subscriptions that you want to keep, and then just seeing your finances at a glance in this sort of chaotic lifestyle is so worth it, because sometimes you just need a little nudge. Take control of your finances today. Go to rocketmoney.com/RobDahm for the free trial. You can see how much it can save you early on, free trial. Go there, see what I see, and save yourself some serious money. So Ethan really took my approach to lightweight motorsports to heart, and he's using string to hold up the radiator. I am actually sadistically hoping that his little contraption lets go so I can blame anybody else but take full responsibility. I was gonna break a record at Pikes Peak, but Ethan dropped the radiator. So what Ethan and I have kind of come up with is a tube coming from this area, and then this is the flat bottom of the floor right here. So it's gonna just kind of curve down at an angle and then come over to the mouth of the bumper. And that will actually make the bottom of the duct. So the actual ducting will become part of the structure of the car, similar to the crash box on the little radicals. And then from the top of the shock tower, have that go past the headlight area, be part of the hood structure, and then come down along the front of this piece. So we're gonna have a real nice, clean, triangled, very structural, small, lightweight duct. So it's multi-purpose. The flat bottom will then be the majority of this duct, and Ethan will make a nice little piece that will just kind of curve that air up into it. But when you take the flat bottom off, there's not just another layer of metal doing the same work. This is the first time I've put the bumper onto the front, and what made me realize this is the front bumper will directly connect to this bolt here. Now the roll bar has been put up higher, but aligning those bolt holes gives us the correct position for the front bumper without having to have all of the other parts in here. And you can see some really wild things. We haven't covered it too much because we've been in such a rush, but Ethan designed this, and in CAD it looked like something, and in real life it looked the exact same. So you can see that with the radiator and the intercooler lined up vertically, it draws a line almost directly to the top of this. A nice smooth entry up into the intercooler, and then we'll have a division halfway through here, and then the second half of the air will go under here and go to the other third, almost half of the radiator. So it'll kind of swoop up. It is time to lay some pipe tube. This is actually tube. This is going to begin the basis of the flat bottom, the splitter, all of it, multi-purposed. To get this to work, we have to bend the tip of it up. And we're gonna bend the tip of this up, bend it here, bend it around the front. We don't have time, and we got a lot of experimentation to do, so we're just gonna bend the tips of these, put it in there, weld that in, and then cut it off, and then weld another piece across it. Awesome. So what we're gonna do is take the front bumper back off, and these are already, purposely over length. Figure out how to get them level with the rest of the car, and then choose where to cut. Keeping this simple and having bars come from underneath the car, held up by the jack, to hold this, because it's all flat bottom, so we can tack that in. It's at the same exact angle as the rest of the car. Life is good. So I just went to get out of the shop and just relax for one fucking moment in my life. And the pedal got stuck to where I couldn't give it any gas. And I pushed on it a little bit, something popped, and then the car redlined, I want to say to like 10,000 RPM. It was fucking insane. It was just flat, like the pedal, something snapped in the pedal. And then I shut it off. Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. Whatever that is probably what did it. Did you hear how that was stuck right there?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for a loop around the shop just to make sure that the engine's fine. But it'll be 9,000 RPM.
Doesn't it have a rev limiter?
Not when the pedals at full throttle. Apparently, not an old Italian car. It was gnarly. That was. I wish we didn't have the catalytic converters on here because that would have been a scream I would have loved to hear. This is the payoff right now. The bar sits in there. It goes almost exactly where we all dreamed of it. It'll create the structure for a system out here. This is 4130 chromoly steel. And look at how easy it is to bend it. That is not where metal's strength is. Metal is strongest in compression and extension. The issue here is that it's doing neither of those things. It's bending sideways, not very strong at all. The thing that begins to build its strength is going from the shock tower and then triangulating it. The magic of what we're gonna do here is actually use the duct to create that additional strength this way. Having a crash zone, yeah, we lose a radiator, but we save this heavy structure here. This actually serves multiple purposes. And we all stared at this for several hours last night after we welded it in, just going, huh, slept on it and came to a really solid solution, and Ethan has ran with that. And you have the beginnings of the front duct. Now this is meant to be semi-permanent, also it's that crash structure, but you can see just a hint of, okay, intercooler can plop in and down. On the very front, the appropriate amount of air goes through both of them, and then the appropriate amount of air goes just to the bottom as well. So proportioning that's gonna be a little bit of a trick, but nonetheless, this is the first time in a car that we've ever had the duct thought out first.
This bender does S bends compared to other benders. They give you basic bends like this. Don't get me wrong. Nothing wrong with all the other benders. This one just gives you that nice pizzazz. I'm gonna hit you guys with a little razzle dazzle with a nice little S piece. And that's why these pieces are kind of on here back to back. I'm trying to get to the center of the strut tower, which is right here. This goes directly around the radiator, so this is determined by the width of the radiator, just so that the radiator and the intercooler could fit in there perfectly fine. So this going straight will put me on the outside of the strut tower. So I'm doing a nice little S to get it back to the center, so that way its welding point will be strong and center and everything will be all fine and dandy. So let's do our first S bend together. Just weld it in those 2 points, right? That's pretty fucking strong.
An inflated one thumb up. These are our existing oil coolers. Incredible. Earl's Holly makes them. They've been phenomenal and work well, but the car does still overheat with these in play. Now this is approximately 72 square inches of surface area, and the hole itself, the duct going into this, is like 58. So that 3-to-1 rule is just not working for the oil system. We're gonna do it right. This is the mother of all.
Jeez.
Yeah, just that alone is the mother of all oil coolers.
Can we get a size comparison? Real quick?
Yeah, surface area wise
Oh, wow.
is 155 square inches of surface area, so it doubled that instantly. If we wanted to run just one of these, we'd have the same thermal capacity of cooling as 2 of those, and that doesn't come for free though. This is massive. This is going to be a challenge to fit in each of the corners, but that's why we got 2 of them, one on each side. So we have double the air cooling capacity for the oil system. We have the dry sump tanks, we have more oil, which is a give and take, that's a good thing, but there's no way that we're gonna overheat the oil at this point with these on here. And on top of that, the thing that Delta PAG has done, they make a unique fan. They take all the electronics that are normally built into the motor controller and all that, the PWM signal, all that is over here. As air comes through the front of this, there's more surface area to get through the fan, and that's gonna be more efficient no matter what. So I am very excited to try that and prove the theory. I hope my issue, I tell you guys, is that these are too much. I hope that that's the problem that we have. This is where the side coolers become really important, is that we've got the PWR side coolers here for the radiator. They're gonna work really well, but I almost want to double stack these on one side, not use that, and have a second radiator this size. Absolutely beautiful. It's gonna be a pain in the ass to fit this in here, and every bit worth it. A little bit more about this fan is that it's rated on their website for 2100 CFM. It only tells part of the story, because in this case, there's not much resistance in front of it, but some fans do tend to fall off when you have, say, double stacked radiators or whatnot. And we'll learn more about that, but the current usage of this fan looks pretty promising. I do use the Spall ABL 321s. You can see the more of the surface area is taken up by the motor itself. I agree with the owner, John, that makes sense, especially at speed when you want the air to just get through here, but they've got all the turbulators in here. This is really gonna be a guaranteed win for us cooling the oil. Joel had to open his mouth and ask, what's a turbulator?
I'm regretting it already.
Yeah, I think when I was about 18, what's the word turbulate sound like to you? Turbulence, right?
Okay.
Like, oh shit got all messed up. Like my story is all like jumbled.
Yeah.
The way I talk is turbulated. Okay,
Yeah,
you know that.
Yeah.
So when you turbulate things, you expose more of it. You can call out more of my lies, the more my story gets bad. So inside the oil cooler, if it's just one tube going straight through, that oil's not moving, and so the outer edges of the oil gets cold, and the inner part slides through into your DMs. So what the turbulators do is they basically cause it to have turbulence, and so then all the oil is swirling inside of there, and then the oil gets closest to the surface area of the metal, gets cold.
These little diffuser things that we did a while ago are being replaced by much better ones. So then in order to put this guy back on there to see what we could do about this outer section of oil cooler and stuff like that, with everything all integrated, just gonna cut them out and put the new ones on there. So this may look a little crazy, but this is IRL CAD. I just put the inside of the bumper on there, and I just taped all this up just so that way I can't fit this in here with the bumper on there, sadly, so I just needed these limitations. This is the inside of the bumper. This angle right here is the vent of the bumper. This is the top of the 99 spec light, so imagine that coming through here. Unfortunately, I had to kind of break this piece off just to even fit this in here, because it's just so goddamn massive. There is a space of this being flat on the splitter. Put this on my table, put this underneath there, and so this all across here is 2 inches off the bottom, so that way I know that right now exactly where that's at, that would clear this piece being in there, because I can't, physically put this on there, and I also don't want to ruin it.
The issue that we have is we want to fit 2 of these on one side to just really just make our lives living hell. I don't care if the vents in the front start having to be compromised. They just need to have the correct surface area at the end of the day. Order of attack, which piece do you put in that you just don't want to mess with? And those front diffusers, we don't want to mess with. Those are the whole point of downforce in the front of the car. We're not compromising those. Those will fit. And then we'll make everything else work. These fans from Delta PAG are incredible. You look at Indy cars, you look at cars that are just meant to race. They don't have starters and they don't have fans on the car. So like if you're at like Goodwood, an Indy car will sitting around waiting to do the next hill climb will overheat. The issue though is that we will have fans coming off of this main unit, and we can use that to keep the car cold at idle. I realized if we don't have fans here, yeah, the oil system would slowly rise in temperature, but it would never really overheat because, you know, ambient air passing through. But why have these fans just pull from this? So we propose the fans being higher up in the shroud, and they can pull from here and this duct here. So instead of having 5 fans doing tons of random shit, we have 2 massive fans throttling the temperature of the entire system. And of course it's gonna make the fans run smoother because it's easier to pull that same amount of CFM through more surface area. He wants to cut out my work.
It's not that I want to, it's just a necessity, you know? It's
And you want to.
No.
Yeah,
No,
we all know. We all know. Here to here now gives us a very big obstacle for the coolant lines coming from the radiator. If I give you an outlet right here, CFD it so it just does what it needs to do, then you've got either the flange here or the flange here, you know, so it's easier to get the clamp off, and then all this whole area frees up. Well, Isaiah started this week by cutting out my, probably the most perfect work I've ever done. It tore him up inside to see me just have it go straight. He's taken that to the next level and done it very quickly. It's one of the coolest balances going on is CNC, fabrication, and really physics. This bar right here is a 1-inch chromoly tube. It's a 095 wall, so it's beefy, right? The issue though is if I press on this, you can actually see it. The deflection is just not its strong property. So what you inherently think is add more, make it thicker, make it 1.5 inches, but that's not the case. If you were to take this right now, this length, and put 1,000 pounds just on this, ignore everything else, this will bend 5.1 inches down. If you made a compression rod from that same spot to the chassis down there and pushed down on this, same 1,000 pounds of downforce, without even using this strength, it would move 18,000th of an inch. Now that's perfect perpendicular force, you know, square to it, you know, that's everything working in its favor. But the point is that steel is very strong in compression and tension, and even in shear strength, but not so much in bending like this. No metal really likes that. So triangulating this area has been one of my biggest goals for reducing weight and actually massively increasing the strength of it. It's really wild seeing this one come into play. We're gonna get that out to here, kind of have it come up through here, but I'll have a compression rod go from here to down there. So when you push down on this corner with 1,000 pounds of force, it directly pulls on the rod. The rod then directly pulls on the one back there, and it's not gonna move. And so even though this thick steel is what's actually holding the car together, it's the compression rods that'll add the strength. And where did I learn that from? That Indy car. It has more downforce than all of these cars combined, and it is using dinky little like Hobby Lobby like little compression rods to hold the whole flat bottom to the carbon chassis. So I think that if we use something, I don't know, that's already 3 times bigger than that one, I think we're in safe for a fraction of the downforce. This looks a little bit better than what I did. Compression rods are really just going to make this thing insanely strong, and then this ends up reinforcing everything else. So it becomes kind of a 1-2 pattern that I'll be able to work around with, and not even around with, to use the fact that we're going to have these massive air things here.
We won't put this up here just for headlight bracket mounting.
The challenge now is getting those coolers in there. the consequences of our actions are showing up very quickly. There's no room for light. And so we're gonna do a little strip of LED down here. Ethan will ultimately make like a 3D printed piece that'll also, you know, feed air to the turbo.
Look on the inside of this. This is gonna be the vent right there.
I mean, it eats up into the main area a little bit, but we have massive coolers in there.
There's just so much surface area that trying to fit this square into this weird ass spot is just, it was really fucking tough.
Yes.
It still is tough. Joel's making gay jokes because he's upset that I'm gay and I'm not into him. This is the last bend. I swear this is it, guys. This is like this is my second try. I fucked up that tube on Sunday, and there was no tube to be bought on Sunday, so I had to wait until Monday, which I ended up doing the header, and so now finally able to finish this opposite side. I noticed that I was having trouble pushing it all the way in, and it was honestly like a pain in the ass. I had to hammer it in, and it wasn't working. I was like, man, what changed or what's different, you know? You can see right here that the ram somehow bent. I'm not gonna say like somehow, like if I didn't do it, obviously I did something wrong because I'm the one operating this thing, so I somehow fucked it up.
Out of the whole front end, this is actually probably my favorite part. That scared the shit out of me.
That's what you get.
The amount of cooling, air cooling, water cooling, oil cooling, all to conquer the mountain. Well, at least conquer a run up the mountain. And I feel pretty damn good about that. This radiator alone, we would have overheated at the top, but we probably could have done it with just that. We got to do a lot of ducting because we're not trying to mix our peanut butter and jelly with the high heat coming off the oil coolers, going into the radiator and so on. And we're gonna do some really wild end tanks for the intercooler.